Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Fun and Games Podcast. I'm Jeff Moonen, and this episode, you're listening to our Magfest 2024 recap. For this year, I went to the Music and Games Festival. Matt did not, and Matt can't be here for this recap, so we're joined by somebody who's been on the podcast before, somebody who helps us out a great deal with production, and who was also at Magfest with me. My partner and our associate producer, Sarah Moonen. Mrs. Moonen, thank you for being on the show today.
Hello, everyone. It's still weird to be called Mrs. Moonen because that is absolutely your mother. I'm Sarah Moonen, but not Mrs. Moonen.
I know.
I don't know.
I like formally welcoming people when I can like that onto the show, and everybody's reaction is delightful, and yours was too.
It's fine. I was equally as taken aback by you calling it the 2024 Magfest, which it absolutely was. But here we are.
I know. Well, it's also typically the Music and Games Festival is the first weekend of January, and this year it was like the third weekend. So super late by our standards, but still January. We're still writing 2023 on checks.
Yeah, we are.
So Magfest is, we've talked about it before on the show, and I would say it is certainly for me, one of my favorite conventions, festivals to go to, because I do love going to all of the other conventions that Matt, Sarah, myself, and whatever combination have gone to. But this one is so much less about specific promotions of things or big companies pushing, and much more about a celebration of music and games and a lot of other nerd culture therein.
I think it's got this feral energy that the rest of the cons we go to are a little bit more, I don't know, corporate, or they have their shit together.
I mean, both are correct in that way. And also, we've never been to Dragon Con, so this is our closest equivalent of when I talk to people about conventions and they go, well, that one's just nuts.
Yeah, we should probably check that out someday.
I mean, not just for that reason, but yeah, I think we should check that out.
If nothing else, for professional interest comparison to Magfest.
Absolutely. We've been going to Magfest since 2019, and there was a lot of all of that feral energy, all of those great panels, all of these incredible gaming experiences to be had. I mean, Sarah, was there a game in particular that you think you played the most of or just kept coming back to, whether old or new?
The most of. Do the Magfest challenges count? Because I sat there for a full 2 hours playing them.
I think those count. It's been a little while since we talked about Magfest. And for any listeners that are unfamiliar, so Magfest, the main floor is 4 gigantic rooms. You have the vendor floor. There is an indie gaming space, whether indie developers showing their games or just a very cool, wacky indie arcade that we'll talk about later.
That's where I spent most of my time.
I mean, I spent most of my Saturday there, and I regret none of it. There is an arcade that is free play, the sit-down fighting games, pinball, so many rhythm games. If you think you know every rhythm game, no, you don't. Go back there kind of thing. And there's also a huge room, all are equal size, that is consoles. Just 6-foot tables with CRTs and small HD monitors with any console you can think of. You can go and grab something. And along one wall, there is a bunch of monitors where there are ROM hacks of all kinds of games, and you complete these challenges for points.
I think it's also important to mention that you're using a Super Nintendo controller to do all of these ROM hacks, regardless of what system they were originally meant for.
And it was a USB pad shaped like an SNES controller. So yes, you can blame the controller on this one, but we were all blaming the controller. It was equal footing.
Yeah, I mean, there was at one point I couldn't consistently jump when I needed to in a Metroid challenge and was just like, well, this isn't happening for me this year.
And the sort of Metroid challenges they're giving you are definitely Twitch challenges. It's the kind of, well, we're going to do the escape sequence at the end of Super Metroid, and you've got even less time now. You're going to need the jump button when you want it.
Yeah, exactly. I think my favorite part about these challenges is if you know the game, it's helpful, but if you are good at gaming, your brain just kind of fills in the what you need to do and how you need to do it. It's a different controller. It's a different experience to how you would play this game. And you just go with your gut and it works.
Yeah, I have never played the Tiny Toons Adventures NES game, but I sure tried the challenge that they had there where Buster Bunny couldn't fall from too high of a place. And that was a big part of the platforming there. It was like, I think it was called Buster's Got Shin Splints. They all had very goofy names.
Oh, that's so funny. I didn't even notice that one.
I mean, naturally, I think both you and I gravitated towards games where we at least, even if we weren't familiar with the game, we were familiar with its concepts so that we could kind of twist with it. We both tried out that Mortal Kombat 3 one, but neither of us are very good at fighting games.
No.
Now, that one was a challenge where your opponent's health is continuously depleting, and every time you hit them, you refill their life for that amount, and you need to keep them alive, but they're still trying to kill you, and you need to survive for 60 seconds. That was one of the harder ones.
Yeah, and that was a repeat from last year as well, right?
Yes.
So I knew from last year that I couldn't beat that one, so I didn't go back and try it again this year.
Yeah, it was kind of fun to be able to go, oh, I know this one, I know this one. Let me knock those out, trade them in for a little token that is exactly why we were playing it, and then try out some new stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I think my favorite of the challenges that was also a repeat, I forget what the clever name they gave it was, but it's the last Bowser fight in Yoshi's Island where he's really big in the background and walking towards you and you need to shoot eggs at his face. And earlier in the game, there's this concept of touch fuzzy, get dizzy, where you touch these fuzzies, I suppose.
They're just floating around.
Floating around. And then your controls get a little wonky in such a way that it lists you to one side and you can't really stay very still easily. And they combine these concepts to be beating the boss while dizzy as if you've touched a fuzzy. And I happened to get to talk to the developer of that level, and they made a change from last year to this year.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah, because everybody was pushing down and like ground pounding, and it made the challenge too easy. Now, I had figured out last year that you could do it, but it was boring to beat it that way. So I was like, nah, I'm going to let myself list and try to do this a little harder. And like when you got into a really bad spot, that's when you can do the ground pound.
Right.
But this year, that wasn't possible. You weren't able to ground pound. So they brought back the challenge in a little bit of a modified format based on, let's just say, user feedback from watching people play the game.
There were patch notes.
Yeah, there were. Well, speaking of patch notes, as I was sitting there, this was literally the first thing I did. I ditched Jeff immediately.
You beelined. It was incredible.
I was like, sorry, bye. I got to go do these challenges before other people remember they're here. I sat down and it was impossible to get to the prize screen. And literally the developer sat down at the station next to me and started fixing it so that he could do that. And then he stayed and played a couple of games as well.
Naturally.
Actually, I got a tip from watching him playing one of the other new ones I really liked, which was a Bubble Bobble level.
The Bust-a-Move one.
Oh, yeah, sorry. It was a Bust-a-Move level. And the conceit was you could change the color of the bubble, but you couldn't aim. It was kind of like going in a pattern to the right, to the middle, to the right, to the left, to the middle, to the left. So you had to time your hits carefully and also change the color to what you needed it to be. So the button that usually shoots wasn't working for me. So I assumed that the challenge was you just had to wait until the timer ran out when it said like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then change the color at the very last second to the path that the bubble was going.
Oh, wow.
I shockingly got to like 5 bubbles left with this method. And he saw me doing that and just kind of like pulled up the game and started shooting the bubbles not at the end. And I was like, oh, I guess there's a button you can push that makes them go. You had to push forward and A or B button. I forget.
It was slightly different, yeah.
Yeah, you had to like actually get it forward in a way that you wouldn't do when you were aiming the, I don't know what it is, the little arrow thing.
Yeah, the cannon thing that it is.
I don't know, whatever it is you're aiming.
I love how much Bust-A-Move we played, and yet we're so bad about the images and terminology here.
Yeah, look, I even called it Bubble Bobble earlier. It's the same guys just doing different things.
It's Bub and Bob, exactly. I mean, they call it Puzzle Bobble in Japan.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah, I'm worldly.
Very. I love it. And you didn't tell me that. I love the fact that he didn't go, oh, do you not know how to do it? Or like even just hey, by the way, he sat down next to you and just demonstrated. He went into attract mode for you.
Oh, he totally did. Everybody kind of like watches what everyone else is doing just to see how the challenge is supposed to look or what's going on. There was that Mario DDR one that came up that I didn't even click on because I didn't see it at first. And then I saw somebody playing what looked like DDR and was like, oh, well, obviously I got to go play that.
Right.
It was an okay challenge. It was basically doing DDR steps with the gamepad to the like Mario music.
Mm-hmm.
I would have liked there to be some sort of platforming in with it too, but as long as you could do the da-na-na-na-na-na,
yeah,
you were fine.
There's a couple of spots for that. And you had to get the hang of your input lag.
Oh, yeah. That was probably the hardest part. But once I figured it out, I just, instead of the line being the place that you were looking at, I looked, 3 millimeters below the line and just pretended that's where the line was.
Yeah, you get used to it. The sort of challenges that, I say this every time, I really wish we could bring these home.
Oh, absolutely. I guess we should start playing ROM hacks is what really this comes down to.
I think this is what this is coming down to. We need to play more ROM hacks.
But they need to be short and attainable, right? I don't want to play like a Kaizo Mario where it's so hard and punishing and you can't get through it. I think what makes these challenges special is that there's easy to, I think, very difficult ones.
Yeah, easy, medium, hard, very hard, I think.
Yeah, something like that. And they're little snippets of a thing you can do, right? Like another one I really like, they call Mario's Dream, and it's the beginning of Super Mario Brothers 2, where you drop out of that little door on the top and you get down to the bottom of those couple little green area things. Hills, whatever they are.
And you don't have to worry about that door up there ever again.
Except in this, you do.
Yep.
You have to jump on one of those guys on magic carpets and bring a key all the way up to the door. It's actually not that difficult, but then they add on for 10 extra points, you have to not become Little Mario, right? They start you with a mushroom and do it without getting hit at all.
Yeah.
And so I beat it first try, Little Mario, and then I spent another 10 minutes trying to get the challenge to it.
Yeah. I like that they have a bunch of them where it's you reach this goal, but you can get bonus points if you do this. One of my favorite ones that I do every year is the Mega Man 2 challenge, where it's Airman stage, but you don't stop jumping. So it's great because I never have to worry about when to jump. I just have to work on timing and when I fire. The goal is to reach Airman, to reach the end of the stage, but you get bonus points if you can defeat him. And so even you go through the big shutter doors, you jump up, you float through, because that's exactly what you do when you play Mega Man games. That's why they're there. And you get into that space in the middle, and it says, challenge completed, beat Airman for a bonus, and off you go. And I think if the minimum was beat Airman, it would feel frustrating, it would feel annoying. I think you're right, Sarah. It's that kind of single piece of a challenge, and then add something onto it that is the nature of the game.
Yeah, but I do think having the knowledge of the game really does help. So I played that same Airman stage, and I was a disaster. I just kept falling. And even more, I kept getting hit by, I don't know, the big face in the air that had 2 rockets on either side of it.
It's got the horns popping up, the little Oni mask thing.
Yeah, that thing. I couldn't get past, like, the third one. It was fine. But I said, this isn't the one that's going to get me the points and get to do this.
Yeah. But honestly, I would love a ROM hack mixtape, because that's kind of what this is. You did mention that you spent a lot of time in the indie game space, and I certainly spent a bunch of time there too. What were some of the cool things you checked out?
So in the indie game space, there's kind of like 2 areas.
Yeah.
The back area is more like an arcade, right? So it's a bunch of the stuff from Wonderville in Brooklyn that we've played before that's fantastic.
Yeah.
There's independent games that people have put up, but in more of an arcade format, right?
Yeah.
It's just sitting there. You can play it. There usually wasn't a huge line, which is why I really liked going back there and playing interesting things.
Yeah.
And then the front half was the developers were there telling you about the game, getting feedback on the games. And I really love that too. I'll start with the stuff in the back because I immediately saw, like, across the room, a giant hat.
You couldn't miss it. That thing was enormous.
It was so big that when we brought our friend Greg to see it, he was like, I thought you were exaggerating about how big this hat was, but you were not.
You see it from across the room and you go, that's a pretty big hat. I mean, maybe it's closer than I think and it's not that big. And you go all the way to the far corner and you're just, that thing's enormous. Oh my God.
Yeah. And so the game was called Haberdasher. Cute name for a game like that.
Mm-hmm.
The conceit was you're an alien trying to take over the world or something like that. And the way to do it is through business. So you have to get your coffee and get your briefcase and go to the office. But the reason there was this giant hat is because it's like a bunch of monkeys in a trench coat situation.
Yeah.
It's two people stand with their head in the giant hat. They did provide shower caps for sanitary reasons.
Love
I was,
that.
of course, concerned.
Yep.
And you have to, like, tip the hat forward together to move it forward and tip it sideways. Now, for anyone who's met me in real life, you will know that I am very short. So the human that I was paired with was not short. So they put me on like a little jazzercise step. So that
You didn't tell me that.
so that we were closer in height. They should have put the second jazzercise step that they had because we were having a lot of trouble tipping the hat. We could like move it left and right, but like getting the tip, I was probably still 2-3 inches shorter than her. And it made it difficult. But watching other people of more similar heights play it later, I could see how it was working. It was apparently somebody's thesis project.
Yes, it was a philosophy PhD thesis.
Yeah, on how people would work together with a non-familiar controller that is huge.
Yes. I learned about this at one of the panels that was put on by a group called Alt.Control that is a collective all about non-typical control methods of gaming and interacting with games. And some of that is for accessibility reasons, and some of that is simply for exploring what is possible and the experiences you can have and the statements you can make, the lessons you can learn. And this is one of them, Kang and Kodos plays Octodad kind of thing. That's one of those kinds of games where learning how to even be normal is a challenge and an achievement unto itself. I Am Bread, Quap, or any of those. I didn't get a chance to play it. I just got to marvel at the huge bowler hats. I realized we actually didn't specify what kind of hat it was. It was a bowler hat. It's exactly the hello, I am doing old business, and very good for tipping and grabbing.
Yeah, absolutely. And right next to the big bowler hat, I didn't catch the name of the game, but there was a white wicker swing that you could sit in, and the swing was the controller. The game was you're like a astronaut and you had to avoid some things and get to a different thing. And each level was different. Some were a little more normal. Some of them looked like a computer error screen where the error boxes were actually part of the game and you had to avoid them. And it was another fascinating control scheme.
Yeah, there was a lot of those back there. And it was so funny to go back there and recognize machines that we see at Wonderville in Brooklyn, where those are also, I wouldn't necessarily, they might be one-of-a-kind machines, but they are these same sort of, they're a little more typical cabinets, but they feel like art installations unto themselves. And we see those, and I immediately go, well, I want to play Black Emperor. And you were like, you can play that in Brooklyn, but I'm here now, and I want to play it.
I was a little more focused in what I wanted to accomplish while I was there, but no one's surprised.
I got plenty done.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I think the only other notable weird control scheme that I played, I'm going to butcher how I say this, but it's the name Disco with then like brackets where it makes it say discontrol, where it was like it looked kind of like a disco ball with little buttons all over it, and you controlled a balloon that could go up, left, right, anywhere you could touch one of the buttons, you moved it. And I first played the game not realizing you could go up. So it was very difficult to navigate the obstacles on the ground. And then I watched the next person who immediately went all the way up to the top. And I was like, oh, got it. Got to come back and try it that way.
And I guess that's its own kind of, if we want to sit here and get weirdly deep, and we do, that's what the show's about. That's the old arcade experience. They bring the machine in. Maybe you see the attract mode. Maybe they've got some instructions on the marquee. But for the most part, you learn from other people and watching other people how the game works. This is just an instance where it has been iterated upon and developed, and yet we can still recapture that feeling. I love that.
Yeah, I mean, another place that happens for me is new pinball machines that I haven't played. We can go on a whole episode about pinball some other time.
And we should. I want to.
Okay. But I know how to play pinball, right? At my core, I can get behind a new pinball table. I can control the ball. I can figure out how to shoot it where I want to go with, a couple of tries. So one of my favorite things to do at places like this or at the Silver Ball Museum where it's free play is just mess around on new tables and get a high score on something I've never even seen before. And that was one of the things I was able to do here, too, with, some machine called Whirlwind. And there were these like little spinning circles, 3 of them in the middle of the table, and you could change which direction the wind was going. And then I got like 7 multi-balls and it, did pretty well. But it's that same experience, right, of knowing how to play a game, coming in and exploring how something different has been done with the medium that you know. Back to the indie games, though, the ones that I talked to the developers for and got to spend a lot of time with, my favorite of the show, I think, is a game called #Blood, BLUD. It was Cartoon Network 90s style adventure game where you're a girl who is fighting all these things around you. And the art was just so beautiful. I even had seen the poster with our friend Greg, and we were like, we have to come back and try this. I looked up from playing and realized an hour had gone by and I had an audience of people watching me play, which 1 was very cool and 2 made me feel kind of like a jerk because I wasn't letting them play. But they were like, I turned around and was like, oh, does someone want to try? And they're like, no, we want the story to keep going.
Yeah. Which definitely is a vote in its favor because it's not just cool fighting and swinging around a field hockey stick to fight vampires. You want to see what happens to the characters because there is so much character in the game.
Absolutely. It's so funny. I'm one of those like talk to every NPC people. And the developers of #Blood didn't say anything about it. But when I was playing Quartet at the end, that developer was like, oh, you really like talking to people, huh? I was like, oh, was I supposed to do more action? You put in all these people for me to talk to and see what the world is like.
Yeah, why shouldn't you do something like that? Quartet is a game that's being put out by Something Classic, who previously put out Shadows of Adam, which Matt has talked about on previous episodes. That is sort of an old school turn-based RPG, but not meant to be 100 hours. It's meant to be a 20-hour, 30-hour game and is nice and tight in its design and very clever in its writing.
But you can maybe make it a 100-hour game if you talk to every NPC every time you pass them.
Anybody who could if you put your mind to it, you can make almost any game into a 100-hour game. This one at least would be enjoyable the whole way.
That's fair. Yeah, I had a really good time playing it. Another one I really liked, I saw it from across the way and it said Slime 64. And I was like, oh, that better be an N64 style collect-a-thon game.
And you got there, and what was it?
It was that.
Yes!
And it was made with so much love.
It really was. I didn't get to play #Blood. That one honestly had such a big line to it. I'm glad you got to play it.
Yeah, I think they said there's going to be a Steam demo soon.
Yes, that one can be wishlisted. That one can be found on Steam very easily, as can Quartet. And Slime 64, that one I didn't have to wait too long to sit down to play it. You were raving about it, and I absolutely had to go check it out. And that one is also, you can wishlist it on Steam right now. But that one was, and especially because you have the stronger nostalgia for 3D collectathons. I
will fight you that DK64 is one of the best games ever made.
That is an opinion that you are having right now.
Just right now?
That you are currently espousing. But I won't deny that 3D collectathons are a lot of fun. It's just that kind of thing of, there are genres that, someone goes, hey, do you want this pixel art Metroidvania? They don't have to work as hard to get me interested in it. Same goes for you. And so when I sat down, I expected it to be fun. But yeah, no, it had a great deal of charm. There was so much love to it. I mean, honestly, something they did very early on that made me immediately love these guys was, you sit down, it's a Steam build, you're handed a good quality USB controller. It naturally gravitates towards Xbox controls. So whichever button it is, like that's the X button, push the A button to do this. And I was struggling. It slowed me down because my natural instincts for reading a controller like that with that many buttons is PlayStation, then Switch, then Xbox. And Switch and Xbox are swapped anyway, so that's already a mess.
Yeah, I'm Switch, then PlayStation, then Xbox.
Right. And so I mentioned this to the developer I was talking to, and he goes, oh, I know exactly what to do. Go into your options, do these things. You can select which of those 3 controller setups is your default. It's the same location. That doesn't matter. It's like, oh, you wanted the circle button. Yeah, obviously. That little bit of accessibility changing was so delightful because honestly, one of the things of the N64 era collectathons that bugs me is, yes, there are great ideas and there's such incredible character and design, frustrated by very awkward control evolution. Doing everything with the one joystick and the C buttons, and we were all figuring out how to move in 3D space. We don't have to figure that out anymore. Not that way. So just getting that to change for me, I was already like, all right, cool, I'm on board. And it was a really well-made adventure.
And the thing that's the most interesting to me about it is their eventual plan for the game is different than the demo. Right now, it's set up as a museum. You can go to the water level, the crystal level, the fire level, and there's another one I didn't go to.
It was the 4 elements, yeah.
Yeah. The crystal's one of the 4 elements?
It was Earth.
Oh, Earth.
It was
that
Earth, air, fire,
sense.
And water.
Yeah. Okay. So in the actual game, it's going to be linear and the powers stack, apparently. Mm-hmm. So you'll get water first, I think he said. And then once you do that, you'll meet someone in another slime area that needs your help and get their power and then combine them to do combined things. And so right now you can just do the fire power and just do the earth power, but that's not like the eventual plan for the game.
No, but it's a great way to demonstrate the powers to everybody and let everyone kind of gravitate towards where they want to and not be overwhelmed, because I think they were timed 15-minute demos. So you just sort of did what made sense.
Yeah, that was the other thing that was so fascinating to me, how everybody set up their demo experience.
Yeah.
Like Slime 64 literally had a counter in the corner that was like counting down from 15 minutes how much time you had left. Some of them made I forget that beautiful point and click adventure one I was playing. There was an end to the story portion and that was where it ended. And they're like, thank you for playing our demo. And then #blood just let me sit there for an hour. And I apologized to them and they said, oh, we don't need a lot of players. We want to see what someone does going through this whole adventure.
Right. And because all of these games were small team games, Magfest isn't necessarily where you send your big studio game to get press for it. It's where small teams or even teams of one bring their games to get those sort of experiences and get that sort of feedback. Quartet, I played last year, and they definitely made some changes and some improvements, but I also recognized other aspects. So I was able to answer some people's questions when they came by, and one of the developers was already chatting with someone else, which felt kind of fun. But you get that kind of one-on-one feedback. Honestly, with a lot of this too, we both played through some of Nixie, a robot story, which was absolutely a pixel art Metroidvania with a robot in it. Well, sign me up. And absolutely fantastic. And it is being developed by one person. And so got to chat with him for a while, and it was a lot of fun. And it never had like all right, now move along. Come on, step right up. It wasn't a carnival ballyhoo. A big kind of summation of all of those was I got to try a game called Gunmetal Gothic that had a very PS1 made in Blender kind of look to it. The soon-to-be renamed Bloodborne cart is the closest approximation of a modern game that's coming out that I can think of. But it's got that very PS1 texture, very dark aesthetic, and it's got a bit of a Dark Souls to it, and a bit of a Parasite Eve is actually probably a good one for what you might think of there. But it's a action-adventure kind of game. There's magic, there's gunplay. It's meant to have a bit of a multiplayer and a bit of Dark Souls to it. One developer. And also, it was a half-hour demo that every time you died, you lost 5 minutes.
Wow.
Which was a very cool, and again, not one that had like people beating down the door getting mad at you. I'm sure if I wanted to play it some more, I could have just restarted the demo. But it was kind of a see how far you can get in that half hour, and you had the time to work with, which was a very cool way to evoke that sort of Dark Souls way and have a little bit of a life system that wasn't really a life system. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, that's very cool. I didn't get to play that. My favorite part about the indie games room was that we went at weird times.
Yep.
Right? Like, we haven't talked too much about this, but the best part about Magfest is everybody is having a different Magfest.
Yeah.
At midnight one night, we were there playing Nixie, talking to this one guy before Greg, who was with us, was like, it's time to go. We're like, oh, sorry, we got to go.
That's right. Nixie was absolutely the midnight game for us. Dang.
Yeah. And so I think that's awesome. And getting to kind of choose your own adventure at this con is what makes it so special to me. I'm really a planner, for anyone who knows me. At most other cons, will have like, this is my lunch plan, this is my dinner plan, these are who I'm seeing when, I have to fit it all in. At Magfest, I just put everything that looks vaguely interesting into my schedule and go with where my heart takes me.
Yeah.
We heard someone playing Superman down the hallway, and we went running because I wanted to see who it was. And it was the Baltimore Gamer Symphony Orchestra. And so I got to listen to them play. And then I was going to put our coats back in the lockers, which shout out to the locker people because
to pop-up lockers. Love you guys.
Pop-up lockers. We needed that. And I saw some people playing DDR on stage to live music. And I was like, all right, ditch the coats in the lockers. What is this? It turns out it was a band called Abandon Quest that their music was awesome. And they had custom step charts made. They must have all had like in-ear monitors and were playing to a click track. Like, there were anywhere from 1 to 3 people dancing on 2 pads as like a choreographed dance live being projected behind the band playing. And I'm not a huge music person. I go to a show here or there. We ran into some friends who were like, you got to come see Zaku. And we're like, all right, cool. And we had a great time seeing them.
They were so good.
They were so good. But like, just seeing this through the exit door and going and watching half an hour of a band I'd never heard of set, that's Magfest to me.
Yeah. You could go to Magfest and do nothing but watch performances and get the most epic weekend out of things. I also loved that a lot of those performers did panels. I went to a really cool music arranging panel. Most of the folks there were doing sets, and one of them was a performer who does a lot of YouTube music and a bunch of other stuff, Lacey Johnson. And one of the times I was walking past to get to the lockers, I hear incredible music. The doors are open into the Potomac Ballroom is where these things happen. Looking in there, and it's like That human with a keytar is absolutely Lacey Johnson. And I stayed there for a little while and listened, and it was fucking epic. Because Magfest is 24 hours a day. It is from Thursday to Sunday going. So, yeah, there's probably folks where Magfest doesn't start until 9 p.m. and they're going to the clubs or they're going to some of the performances or anything else. And you get glimpses of that. You get these moments of, you are having a wildly different Magfest. Go you.
Absolutely. It's the best part.
Yeah, I mean, I loved the fact that it's all in a hotel, convention center, all that stuff. There's a shoe shine stand where definitely folks will sit, kind of hang out. It's almost like sitting on the bleachers in high school. And for a little while there was somebody cosplaying Dr. Robotnik that just kind of posted up there and was, in character doing pictures with people and just kind of hanging out. And I'm not one to normally be like, oh my God, I saw this person cosplayed as this. I'm going to take a picture and I need to tell everybody. But I texted the group chat and I'm just like, Dr. Robotnik looks like he lives here. This is where he belongs.
You did do that.
And did I lie?
No, you did not.
And there's a lot of those kinds of experiences. Something that I wanted to kind of sum up with the indie gaming is the fact that I didn't get to play all of the games that were there. None of us did. But all the ones we saw, all the ones we tried, all of these great experiences, they were small passion projects, or, they were backed, but they still were made with great zeal and love of the hobby, of the industry, of where it all came from. And a lot of them, there's a PS1 throwback. There was a Nintendo 64 throwback. There's a bunch of pixel art. There was
a Portal, but with time instead of space. There was a turn-based RPG where you changed from black background to white background.
Yeah, there's one called just Wizard Ducks. And it had a very top-down Mode 7 look to it, and I'm very excited for when it comes out. All of these are a little retro, a little throwback, but are still moving forward and have cool ideas and wild notions.
And made by people who love games.
Yes. And so really the big thing for me going to Magfest is loving games amongst peers and friends and folks and others who love games, if not necessarily the same way, but with a similar passion.
I would second that, but I would also add that it's about being really weird.
Oh, really weird.
Right. Everything from the Danny DeVito shrine that grows bigger every year.
Praise
to
Danny.
The mag chest where people make a giant chest that rolls a D20 ring that gives prizes for no reason.
I got 2 six-sided dice from it.
Oh, I got some glow sticks and then forgot to put them on at the concert.
They were fine.
I guess I just have them for now then.
I know, right?
And even the energy of the panels. I know we have a lot to talk about panels, but I don't think we can talk about any of them without talking about our favorite panel.
I mean, we can allude to all of the other ones. The one we need to talk about is Waluigi.
Waluigi's wasted potential.
This was at 11:30 p.m. on Saturday. We'd been going since Thursday. 11:30 p.m. on a Saturday is exactly when this panel needed to exist. It was incredible. Going in there, how big of a capacity do you think that room was?
150.
Yeah, okay, that's what I thought. And it was pretty full. It might have been packed.
I think it was packed. I think they might have been turning people away. So one thing I do want to mention about the panels, this year, because Magfest sold out, was the first time we've ever been turned away from a panel.
Yeah.
It was a little discouraging at first, but we had 7 things we wanted to do at any time. So we were like, whatever, pivoting, doing this instead. But they let you wait, and anytime someone walked out, they let new people in, and you could still kind of hear it from out in the hallway. I think this was one of those that got full, and then they let people in.
Yeah, and we got in there pretty early. Greg and I walked over there from an hour-long screening of wacky Japanese commercials. So there again, this gives you a sense of the vibe. So we got in there a little early, so we were able to get some seats. And the sort of folks who got there early were exactly the people in varying states of Waluigi and Wario cosplay.
You were in your punk Waluigi casual cosplay.
I had my purple punk vest and my Misfits Waluigi shirt. I did. I didn't have the hat, though.
That was a mistake. We do have a rhinestoned Waluigi hat.
I need to
for
up my
you.
game on that costume. But it definitely had, just from obvious looking around, a lot of purple, some yellow, and a lot of wah.
Yeah, well, I mean, what happened when Waluigi walked into the room?
When the Luigi cosplayer walked in, we tried to wah him out of the room. I think we tried. I think you did sit down and it was all in good fun, but it just like you got into the spirit of it. I mean, yeah, I could have watched an hour-long YouTube video of all of those same Japanese commercials, but when certain ones came back and everyone would have the reactions to them because they were part of the series, because they were creepy, because they were funny, because everyone wanted to guess what the product they were trying to sell was. Why did they have a commercial for tourism in Oregon for Japan? I don't know. But it was there, and it was like a 90-second mystery. And this panel was all about the history and the mystery of Waluigi.
And look, we'd been to a panel earlier in the day that was not as spectacular as I'd hoped. So my hopes for Waluigi panel were really high, right? So the presenter put up their PowerPoint, and it was everything I wanted it to be, right? Pulling first-hand resources from the announcement of Waluigi in the original Mario Tennis to how he's been described since then, to them completely changing the canon of Waluigi and no longer having him be Wario's little brother, to them asking Charles Martinet what he thinks these guys are. And what were they, Jeff?
They're just two nice evil guys who found each other.
Two nice evil guys who found each other.
I love that.
Yeah.
Evil wins.
And is so gay.
I mean, come on. Obviously. I love it.
Obviously.
It
was just that wonderful kind of Waluigi moment. And the crowd was going crazy. The presenter was having fun. And that's what Magfest is.
Yeah, it absolutely is. That is one of those wonderful encapsulations of community and chaos and gaming and music and art and creativity. There were a bunch of panels that I could only go to for a few minutes or check a little bit of them. There was an entire speedrunning marathon that went on that we only got to see. I don't think we got to see an entire run of anything. We got the tail end of the Mega Man X4 100% Zero race, and we
completely missed our friend Carl's Dark Souls run because the time changed 4 times.
Yeah, that is what it is. And from what I heard, Carl did a damned good run.
Yeah, we'll have to watch the recap on it.
Yes, we will.
We caught the Juggle Show objects percent.
Yes, somebody in a Chris Redfield cosplay, and he filled it out, juggling objects, raising money, and every time he dropped an object, he would do a number of push-ups. Every time he changed props from balls to clubs to rings, he would do push-ups. And for every $50, he would increase the number of props, and then the alternating $50, he would increase the number of push-ups. So I would love to rewatch that run and find out how many push-ups he did, because...
Oh, like total?
Yeah, because he finished with 50.
He did, but he was also like, he had a little bit of hubris. He was like, well, we're only on 8, but I'm going to do 10. And I'm like, you're going to regret that, dude.
You foolish, foolish man. And he was, but he did the push-ups and raised money for charity.
And I feel like, because it didn't really occur to me until watching it in real time, push-ups and juggling use the same muscles.
Yes, they do.
And so at the end, after he did the 50 push-ups before doing like the big closing number
like
thing.
7 rings or the balancing act.
Yeah, he was like, oh God, these all feel so heavy. And I was like, oh, yeah, this was a flex, dude.
And to speak as someone who is a juggler, you look at juggling clubs and you think they're like bowling pins. They're shaped like that. They're not heavy. They're either hollow or they just have a dowel down the middle, and they're hollow otherwise to just sort of offset the weight so they spin the way they're supposed to. You're juggling a bunch of them for a while. They're not meant to be exercise equipment. They're not heavy. But yeah, if you do a grand total of like 300 push-ups over the course of half an hour, they're gonna start to weigh you down a little bit.
If this were a YouTube video, it would cut to you and I doing like a push-up challenge where I would get through 2, maybe 3. You would impressively do like 20 and then try to juggle something and just like fall over.
Yes.
I can't juggle, so I wouldn't actually try.
You can juggle a few objects.
Okay, I can juggle 3 objects twice.
Yes, exactly. That counts.
Oh, well, it impresses the nibbling, so that's all that counts.
Exactly. And why do we juggle otherwise, if not to be so cool and impressive?
For the ladies.
Oh, yeah. Totally.
So that was our favorite panel, and we were talking a little bit about the speed runs. I had 2 other panels that I wanted to talk about. I don't know if you have anything, because you went to so many more panels than me.
I went to a lot of professional development stuff. I went to things for voice acting, for music, for things like that. And
I went to nonsense.
You went to nonsense. We need to talk about your stuff.
Well, I think, so Waluigi was hands down favorite panel. Second was the live Taskmaster that was done. I think it's also just, I like the British show Taskmaster. I like the format of it. That it was fun getting to watch some people either not really understand the lateral thinking assignment while one person is like, I got this. Like, for instance, at the beginning of Taskmaster, the show, the first task is called the prize task. So you know about it before the show. You have to bring in a physical object, and the winner of the episode takes home all the objects that people have brought. So the challenge task for Magfest Taskmaster was bring something that embodies Magfest. Bring something that like is the embodiment of Magfest. So somebody brought like Danny DeVee donuts, cute. Somebody else brought like a Pizza Hat thing, whatever. The 2 standout prizes were Danimal Cannon, who apparently has performed more than any other performer at Magfest over the years, brought from the 10th anniversary signed poster from a bunch of the bands that performed. And we were all like, no one's ever going to be able to beat that. Then this other guy comes up and is like, so what makes Magfest Magfest? It's the volunteers, the musicians, the staff. So I've been collecting hair and nails from anyone who would give it to me.
It's wild.
Who fits into that category, including, thanks to my wife, the proto-men who happened to just walk in at that moment and were like, give us back our hair. What?
That is, oh my God.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. And that's how this started. And then they gave them video game challenges and music challenges. And it was just fun to watch it live. That was probably my most enjoyable panel. And then we had a little bit of fun at that Sunday morning cartoon jams with Jer from Scottoon Network.
Absolutely. It was a lot of fun. No, the whole music aspect. I mean, I typically downplay my musical past and present and future of things, but yes, I'm a musician and I love making, playing, and deconstructing music. And Magfest has plenty of that. I left Waluigi early to go play meme arrangements, so we got to play some Crab Rave, just stuff like that.
I just went, woo, to the DuckTales. And
on Sunday morning, we went there, and it was people bringing instruments and jamming out like their jazz charts on the Ed, Edd and Eddy theme, Pete and Pete, DuckTales, Sonic the Hedgehog, and the like. And it was one that plenty of these music panels are just people coming to jam, and it's not much of an audience. This one, definitely, because of the people involved, because of the nature of the content, it was a real nice half and half.
I also think because it was Sunday.
Also, Sunday morning.
Sunday doesn't have a lot of panels. It's kind of sleepy. They think everyone's going to go really hard on Saturday night.
And they're right.
Yeah.
I mean, there were probably more wonderful tunes played during that panel, but we got there halfway through because...
we made it.
But we made it.
We were staying in a totally different state.
Alexandria, going Virginia to Maryland and back. That's like the fact that we live in New York City and going to New Jersey and back.
I mean, yeah, we literally did that today.
We literally did that today. But we traveled between states so very far. But I imagine even people that were staying at the Gaylord were like, do you want to go to the panel? No, it's too far. We can't do that. It's like, we have to ride the elevator.
One more thing about panels that I did want to mention too is, as opposed to any of the PAXs or at Comic-Con or things like that, it's not about the big name people. There are some big name people on them, but it's about people wanting to share interesting things that they know or that they're passionate about. Scott2 Network wasn't performing this year, right? They performed last year, so they'll probably perform next year. Jared was just there and probably wanted to do a jam session.
Yeah, exactly. One of the panels I went to that was all about audio recording and getting better sound, whatever else. A lot of it was information I had, but again, professional development. I edit this podcast. I like making sure we get better sound. But when the guy started up, he's like, yeah, this is my 4th year doing this. They gave me this bigger room because people keep coming back. It's not just the selling of a product. It is the accumulation of knowledge and the sharing of people's experiences. And that's definitely what keeps me coming back and what keeps Magfest at the top of the list for me. Every convention I go to is fun, is exciting, is incredible. And I am thankful and delighted for the ability to go to all of them. But Magfest ranks up pretty high because of all of these qualities about them.
Absolutely. And back to what I said before about everybody having a different con, we haven't even talked about the tabletop side of all this, right? We, a couple months ago, went to a full tabletop convention in PAX Unplugged. I once set foot in the tabletop tent here, whereas our friend Greg spent 85% of his time at tabletop panels playing indie tabletop games. And that's awesome.
Had a great time. And that's exactly, everybody can have their Magfest, as it were, because it is, I keep going back and forth because it is technically a music festival. It has that convention air because of panels, because of other things like that. But yeah, it's a festival. It's a celebration. And there are, I suppose, rooms or tracks or ideas, but it's 4 days, 3.5 days, whatever it is that you make yours. And I love that it's at the start of the year because I always come back from it feeling almost awed and terrified because of a feeling of reinvigoration, of love of gaming, love of music, love of art, love of creativity, and the love of the people who make it, break it, and then make it into something even greater.
Same. And you get to try things you wouldn't otherwise try, right? Yeah. I don't go to a lot of concerts. You went to a Chiptunes concert in Philly, and I did something else, right?
And Danimal Cannon performed at it. He had a great set. It was incredible.
Next time I should give it a shot. Whereas I was like, oh, man, the claw machines are having free play? That never happens.
And I think because of all of the Like a Dragon we've played, you aced it.
I like to think that I unlimited confidenced it, got it on the first try, and then was like, gotta walk away. They don't let you keep the prize, in case you're wondering, in free play. They block it. It was for the prestige.
The prestige. And you have it. I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Sarah, thank you for hopping on and getting in front of the mic for this one and helping me recap just this wild weekend that we had.
Thank you for letting me use your really awesome booth and kicking you out to the desk.
This is how the production structure works at Fun and Games, apparently. But also, listeners, we'd like to hear from you. Did any of you go to Magfest this year? Have you gone to Magfest in years past? Are there conventions, festivals, celebrations like this that are some of your favorites? Did any of those games that we talked about sound really good to you? We'd love to talk about them more. Again, we learn about new games through recommendations and happenstance, and we'd love to be part of that for you. So please get in touch with us. There are so many great ways to reach out. We are Fun and Games Pod across any social media that we are active upon. You can email us at funandgamespod@gmail.com. Let us know what you thought of this episode, previous episodes, who you'd like us to talk with, and what you'd like us to talk about in future episodes. You can also get a really good idea of what we've been up to, what we've been making, and if you're so inclined and able to, you can help support us on our Patreon, patreon.com/funandgamespod. And we appreciate each and every one of you who checks it out, who's a member, whether free all the way on up. And we would like to shout out those who have gotten themselves up on the high scoreboard. Today, the high scoreboard is Alex Lavelle, Case Aiken, Daniel Needon, Luke Lewis, Roger Reichart, Alejandro Alves, Curly Bright, Film It Yourself, Patrick Edwards, Robert Prine, and Sean Bowen. Thank you so much for your support. Please enter your initials. You'll maybe find some of the buttons behind the Danny DeVito shrine. You need to find exactly where to push them. You'll find out when his eyes light up. Don't worry about it. It's all going to be fine. And you can also go to certainpov.com and find not only all sorts of other fantastic podcasts, but a permanent invite link to our Discord server where a lot of these conversations continue. Pictures from conventions go up, logs of games that we've beaten and recommendations therein, as well as other fantastic nerdy conversations. And if you liked this episode, if you like this show and you haven't already, we would love it if you would rate and review on your podcast platform of choice. Spotify and Apple definitely are the ones that get us the most sort of recognition in the algorithm as we must play those games. But we just want to get this out there to more people who we can share these ideas with more. Yours to us and us back to you, because this is a conversation. Thank you for being a part of it. I'm Jeff Moonen.
And I'm Sarah Moonen.
And happy gaming.
Hey, Nerf herders.
You sure you want to go with that?
Hey, everyone.
There we go. More inviting.
Have you ever had a movie that you really wanted to love, but something holds you back?
Or one that you did love in spite of a flaw?
Well, I'm Case Aiken.
And I'm Sam Alisea.
And on Another Pass, we sit down with cool guests to look at movies that we find fascinating.
But flawed.
And we try to imagine what could have been done when they were made to give them that little push.
We're not experts. We just believe in criticism.
Constructive criticism.
Sure.
So come take another pass at some movies with us.
And every now and then, we can celebrate movies that did it on their own, too.
You can find us at certainpov.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
Pass it on.
CPOV.
certainpov.com.